Hey, you fearless dragon riders. This audio is about to drop Game of Thrones spoilers. So old that they're etched in the crypts of Winterfell. This show's been around longer than Tyrion's wine tab, so if you're still dodging plot twists, you're gutsier than Dany storming King's Landing. Dive in at your own risk. Legendary, just a tad behind adventure. Let's kick up some Westerosi chaos. Greetings, noble listeners of Long Live the Queen. Step softly into our gilded gallery of fate and intrigue, where thrones teeter like chess pieces, and innocence is no shield against ambition's blade. I'm Christina, your ever-curious courtier, pouring tea steeped in prophecy and peppered with peril. Today, we peer into a haunting mirror of history and fantasy. Tommen Baratheon, the sweet-hearted stag in a lion's den, and Edward V of England, the boy king cloaked in shadow and silence. Two child monarchs swept into crowns they scarcely had time to wear. Will they be remembered as pawns, princes, or something else? Straighten your doublets, hush the ravens, and follow me into this tale of tender rules and ruthless realms, where even the smallest crown can cast the longest shadow. Tommen Baratheon, as we meet him in A Game of Thrones, is the youngest of Cersei Lannister's golden brood. A quiet kid, overshadowed by his vicious brother Joffrey. By a clash of kings, he's 8, a pawn in the War of the Five Kings, with his mother pulling the strings. Across the narrow sea, Edward IV, born in 1537, was the longed-for son of Henry VIII and Jane Seymour. Crowned at 9 in 1547, he ruled during England's turbulent Reformation, guided by powerful uncles and lords. Both boys were born into power, but trapped in this cage, their innocence tested by ruthless courts. Tommen and Edward became boy kings, their crowns too big for their heads, with grown-ups treating them like props in a deadly reality show. In Westeros and Tudor England, young rulers were catnip for power-hungry regents, and these kids were no exception. Tommen Baratheon's reign kicks off in a storm of swords after Joffrey's spectacular purple wedding. At 8, he's plopped on the Iron Throne, a human shield for Lannister ambitions and the War of the Five Kings. Cersei, his mother and regent, runs the show in a feast for crows, stacking the small council with yes-men, and scheming against rivals like Margaery Tyrell. But Cersei's paranoia backfires when she arms the faith militant, who turn on her by a dance with dragons. Meanwhile, Tommen's grandfather, Tywin, and later his uncle Kevin, try to steer him, but he's too busy petting his cat, Sir Pounce, to notice. Margaery, his savvy wife, also manipulates him, charming him to weaken Cersei's grip. Tommen's a puppet with multiple puppeteers, his decrees showing he's clueless about the chaos. Edward VI, crowned at 9 after Henry VIII's death, was the Reformation's poster boy, meant to cement Protestantism. Too young to rule, he was governed by regents. First his uncle, Edward Seymour, Duke of Somerset, then John Dudley, Duke of Northumberland. Somerset, as Lord Protector, pushed Protestant reforms like the Book of Common Prayer, but his wars with Scotland bled the treasury dry. By 1551, Northumberland ousted him, taking control and nudging Edward toward the harsher anti-Catholic politics. Edward's court was a snake pit. Edward, devout and bookish, signed off on reforms but had little real power. His device for succession, naming Lady Jane Grey his heir, is likely Northumberland's brainchild. Both boys were props in adult power grabs. Tommen's regents, Cersei, Tywin, Margaery, urged him to fight Lannister battles, leaving him oblivious to the faith's rise. Edward's uncles and lords dressed him up as a Protestant king, but their feuds destabilized England. Their youth made them malleable, but also made them vulnerable. In today's world, they'd be the kids whose brand is managed by a shady PR team, no questions asked. Tommen and Edward were both softies in a world of steel, their kind hearts both a blessing and a curse. In courts sharper than Valyrian blades, their gentleness was a rare flower, but their impressionable natures let others pluck at them. Tommen Baratheon is the anti-Joffrey, a cinnamon roll too pure for Westeros. In A Game of Thrones, he's a shy kid who loves his kittens and cries when things get rough. By a feast for crows, he's a king. He's still a sweetheart. Sansa notes his kindness, and he blushes at Marjorie's flattery. He wants to be a good king, practices his swordplay, and signing whatever Cersei puts in front of him, but he's clueless about the game. In A Dance with Dragons, he's torn between Cersei's rants and Marjorie's charm, trying to keep them both happy. His gentleness makes him lovable. Tyrion calls him a good lad. But his impressionability, it's his downfall. He trusts the wrong people, like the High Sparrow, and can't stand up to Cersei's tantrums. Over in England, Edward VI was a choir boy of kings. Raised on humanist learning and Protestant zeal, he was pious to a fault. Chronicles paint him as a mini-saint, penning religious tracts and praying for England's soul. At 9, he wept at his coronation, overwhelmed but earnest. As king, he kept a diary, jotting down council meetings with nerdy glee. That's relatable. And pushed for Protestant reforms, like banning Catholic masses. But his gentle nature, he was kind to servants, and loved his sisters despite their religious differences. It made him a pushover. Somerset and Northumberland molded his politics, and courtiers flattered his ego to sway him. Bypassing Mary and Elizabeth for Jane Grey shows he could be swayed by stronger wills. Both boys were ray of light in dark courts, but their impressionability let the shadows creep in. Tommen's kindness couldn't counter Cersei's chaos, or the faith's zeal. Edward's piety fueled reforms, but left him dancing to his regent's tunes. Their gentle hearts were their strength, but their trusting natures were the chinks in their armor. Let's light a candle for the heartbreaking legacies of Tommen and Edward, boy kings whose reigns ended before they could truly begin, leaving echoes of what might have been. In Westeros and England, their deaths marked turning points, their promise snuffed out too soon. Tommen's story is a slow-burn tragedy. By A Dance with Dragons, he's a king in a crumbling realm, caught between Cersei's schemes and the faith militants' rise. The books leaving his fate open. George R.R. Martin's still writing, folks. But in the Game of Thrones show, which we'll peek at for closure, Tommen's arc ends in season 6, overwhelmed by the faith's grip, Marjorie's arrest, and Cersei's wildfire massacre of the Great Sept. He jumps from the Red Keep window, dying at 13. His legacy is a whisper of potential, a king who might have healed Westeros, but was crushed by its weight. The Lannister dynasty teeters, with Cersei's madness filling the void. Back in England, Edward VI's reign was a fleeting spark. Crowned in 1547, he ruled 6 years, pushing England deeper into Protestantism. But his health, likely tuberculosis, failed him. By 1553, at 15, he was dying. His court a frenzy of plots. His device to crown Jane Grey, bypassing Catholic Mary, was a desperate bid to save his reforms, but it flopped when Mary rallied support. Edward died in July 1553, whispering prayers. His death unleashed chaos. Jane's 9-day reign collapsed, and Mary's Catholic restoration undid his work. Edward's legacy is a what-if, a Protestant visionary whose reforms shaped Elizabeth I's reign, but whose early death let England wobble. Both boys were a symbol of hope, undone by fate. Tommen's kindness offered a chance to mend Westeros, but the war and betrayal broke him. Edward's zeal could have solidified the Reformation, but illness and politics cut him down. Their deaths, Tommen's leap, Edward's fade, left their realms strong, their legacies fragile dreams in a brutal world. And that is our tender dive into Tommen Baratheon and Edward VI, 2 boy kings who wore crowns too heavy for their hearts, their light dimmed by a world too harsh. As youthful rulers, they were puppets in regents' games, their thrones stages for others' ambition. Their gentle, impressionable natures glowed in dark courts, but left them open to manipulation. And their tragic legacies, cut short by untimely deaths, reveal that even the purest sparks can't always light the way. Tommen and Edward both teach us that power isn't just strength, it's surviving the strings that pull you. Their stories, one woven in Westeros' wildfire, the other etched in England's Reformation, warn us that youth and kindness without wisdom are candles in a gale. Whether in King's Landing or Greenwich, these boys whisper, rule with heart, but guard it well. So what's the vibe, my royal listeners? Does Tommen's kitten-cuddling charm outshine Edward's prayer book passion? Or did Edward's longer reign steal the crown from Tommen's brief flicker? You can share your thoughts with me at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com. Slide into my DMs on Facebook or Instagram at longlivethequeenpodcast. Or join the VIP crew on Patreon. The link is in the show description. Go hence, and may no leech mistake thee for a stick. Long live to all the queens out there. And until next time, bye.